So good afternoon and thank you for joining us today for the Pearl Gull Iron Limited Investor Webinar. My name is Jane Morgan and we manage the investor and media relations for the recently listed West Australian high-grade iron ore exploration and development company. Today we'll be running through our investor presentation, which has been lodged on the ASX, followed by a Q&A session. To ask a question throughout the presentation, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. To run you through today's presentation, I will now introduce you to our directors, Jonathan Fisher and Alex Parsful.
Thank you, Jane, and good afternoon, all of those on the East Coast, and good morning for those joining on the West Coast, and welcome to Pearl Gull Iron Limited first webinar as a listed company. So the usual disclaimers. So Pearl Gull trades under the ASX ticker PLG, has just over 100 million shares on issue, market cap upon listing of 20 million, giving us a pro forma enterprise value of around 15 million. The board of Pearl Gull is made up of Russell Clark, who's ex-Grange Resources, Savage River, and with plenty of iron ore expertise, myself, Jono Fisher, who has plenty of iron ore experience given his Atlas background, and then Kathy Moises and Matt Warner as our company secretary. Pearl Gull has around a 55% free float, with Cockatoo Iron NL or CINL being its major shareholder, and that company is joined by several institutions and high net worths. So turning to a little bit more detail on Pearl Gull and its assets and investment proposition. So Pearl Gull has a series of tenements on Cockatoo Island in Western Australia. Cockatoo Island is located in the Buccaneer Archipelago in the Kimberley, to the north of Derby. Cockatoo Island and Koolan Island, a nearby island, have a long history of iron ore mining since the 1950s. So BHP Iron mined Cockatoo Island and Koolan Island from the 1950s until the 1980s, and material from those two islands was used to support and drive the BHP steel business for many years. That business then evolved and went down to the Pilbara, and Cockatoo and Koolan Island then went through a phase of care and maintenance and shutting down, and have now been reinvigorated since the iron ore price and iron ore environment has become more buoyant over the last couple of decades. So Pearl Gull has a granted mining lease, MO 4235, is a long strike from the historic BHP mine, the Seawall Pit mine, and you can see the geology running straight into our mining tenement. The mining tenement also covers key bits of infrastructure on the island, so a bore field, rock quarry, airstrip, and has plenty of room for a beneficiation plant and that sort of thing. So Pearl Gull has been involved with this tenement since 2017, has a strong understanding of the geology on the island, and has been drilling since the middle of this year, a long strike from that known mineralised ore body in the old BHP pit. So our strategy is to develop up a resource estimate for that along strike position, and then go looking around the rest of the island for other higher grade positions and also beneficiation ore. Now, one of the good things about being on an island is that you don't require a railway line or any huge amount of infrastructure and capex to get into production. So we're looking at a capex light model to limit the amount of funding that's required to start production here. So there's plenty of news flow expected. We've got the drilling campaign underway. We'll be estimating a resource once that's finished, and then looking at various production opportunities. So just zooming in on Cockatoo Island and the detail of what's covered in our tenement. So you can see here on slide 5, we've got the old mine, the BHP mine, the along strike, the position called the switch pit, and then where our tenement package, MO 4235, and a few ancillary tenements cover the rest of the island. So you can see there's an airstrip, plenty of room for a beneficiation plant, potable water bore field, and all the things we need for the moment, and to also support a restart of production from the island. So in terms of our strategy, we've got a strong understanding of the geology. and we are drilling now and have been drilling since July. We may undertake more drilling next year to expand our resource and reserve position. We've put in an initial mining proposal to the DMRS, and we're just working through the details behind that, and looking forward to getting into production in the short term. The underpinning that production will be the switch pit. That's the nearest term likely cash flow from the island. And then dependent on drill results, we'll see whether we can bring into production an area we call North Bay, and also the magazine pit, which are more central to the island. Now, one of the key things about switch pit and about Cockatoo Island is its grade. It's very high grade. So the ore body at Cockatoo Island has historically been shipped out at 65% plus Fe, and we see that switch pit position being a similar grade. In terms of all the things that we need to do to get into production, we've got good relationships with the Indigenous owners, the traditional owners of the area, so Dambi-Mangari people. We have good relationships with KTS, who are looking at developing an oil and gas hub on the island, and NK5, who own the village. So we're working in a remote location with all of those parties to underpin this development. So from here, Pearl Gull is supported by high net worth and solid institutional support, and we're well funded to carry out all of those activities. So just turning to the geology in a bit more detail, the geology of Cockatoo is the Cockatoo Island itself is about 7 kilometres long and about 1.5 kilometres wide at its widest point. It's a series of isoclinally folded sedimentary strata, with the high-grade iron ore occurring on the southern side of the island. But as the folds dip to the south and fold back on themselves, there's good potential for the high-grade material to reappear on the northern side of the island, as can be seen in this section. So the Cockatoo Formation shown in light blue here. This geology is well understood. There's good surface outcrop. There's also plenty of drilling across the island that have delineated these various stratigraphic units, and it's then up to the geology as to whether the high grade reappears on the north side and how much and what the quality of that is, and then also how much beneficiation material is in the middle of the island. So interestingly, the along strike equivalent of Cockatoo, Koolan Island, sees exactly this. So on slide 8, we're showing a comparison of Cockatoo Island and Koolan Island. So Koolan Island on top, and we're looking to the northwest. We're looking down the strike of the ore body, and you see a similar surface geology pattern on Koolan Island to Cockatoo Island, and these similar isoclinal folds. So looking down the strike of Koolan Island, you can see this is a fairly old photo. This is 2017 when the seawall pit on Koolan Island was flooded. You can see here we've got the main pit on the left-hand side, or the southwestern or the southern side of the island, and then on the northern side of the island there are pits that have been mined. So Mullet, Acacia, and Eastern Barramundi, which were 18 million tonnes at 61% Fe. So this is exactly what we're looking for on the northern side of the island. So on the bottom of slide 8, you can see where that target position would be, and is on Cockatoo Island that we're testing with this drilling. But underpinning the short-term fortunes of Pearl Gull and a restart of production at Cockatoo is an area called the Switch Pit, which is the long strike extension of the old BHP seawall and BHP and Portman seawall pit. So we've been drilling out the Switch Pit to allow us to delineate a resource, and we're seeing everything that we should be seeing in terms of an along strike high grade extension. So we look forward to reporting to the market in due course a resource for this area, and you can see there just how close it is to the ocean. So there's no requirement for expensive rower lines or ports. We would look at a transshipping operation to get into production here. On slide 10, a little bit more on North Bay. So what we can observe from other winnowed beach deposits on the island suggests that the North Bay strategy is right. We can see on the northern side of the island that there's significant high grade detrital mineralisation, and we're now just looking for the source of that, which has been tested in the current drilling. As we're proving up these buried deposits on the northern side of the island, one of the things that is important is to commercialise the rock that sits above those high grade positions. And one of the opportunities we're looking at is using the overburden quartzite as a building material or a subsea ballast in the oil and gas industry. So given the Kimberley is a pristine area and there's not many places where you're allowed to go and dig rock up to service industrial purposes in the area, our waste rock, our quartzite that sits on top of any high grade positions, could be a useful source of building material. So that leads me to a discussion on KTS and the infrastructure opportunity here. So one of the parties that we're working with to commercialise that waste opportunity and that quartzite quarrying opportunity is KTS. And KTS are proposing to build a supply base on the island to support the Browse Basin oil and gas activities. So you can see here on slide 12, there's a map of where the Browse Basin sits relative to the northwest coast of Western Australia, and where Cockatoo Island is in relation to that. So it's a lot closer than Derby and a lot closer than Broome. So that's the philosophy there. So with that, I'll turn over to Jono to continue on, and he can talk more about the shipping and the commercial aspects.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Good morning, everyone. Look, one of the things that we're looking to do on Cockatoo, as Alex has mentioned, is pursue a capital light model. We're looking to get into production in the relative near term, and to do it without being highly dilutive to our shareholders. Now, how can we do that? Well, we've got the benefit of a lot of history on the island. So there is a long set of historical data and other things around that we can use to pinpoint our exploration. And we have been drilling since July. We have the benefit of a lot of infrastructure you usually have to build. For example, there's an airstrip there. There is an existing accommodation facility, has a little bit of a history to it. It was actually formerly a 5-star resort. I think it's fair to say the most beautiful place you could ever want to work as an iron ore miner. So we think our staff will be very keen to get on the island. The island is well served by existing supply routes with an existing barge service that can run into Broome and Derby. And because we are on an island, it is a relatively small scale operation, which means we can use relatively small scale equipment. And the photo there is actually the operation currently underway on Koolan Island. But smaller equipment, generally easy to get and can be easily put on the balance sheet of your mining contractors. We are also already in discussion with Australia's leading transshipment services operator to provide an end-to-end solution to get the ores out of switch pits, especially in the near term on a capital light model. Now, the island is a small place, right? And for us, it's very important to make sure that for all the stakeholders on the island, we work in a constructive manner. Very pleased to say that we have a constructive working relationship with the Indigenous owners, the Dambi, as we call them, and we have recently conducted heritage clearance surveys. Everything came back clear on that with them, and we continue to proactively engage with them. Alex has already mentioned KTS, where we find we have very strong shared interests in getting more operations onto the island. The more people are there working with us, the more workforce there, the more equipment there, the more spare parts and supplies. It makes it actually better for everybody. We similarly have good working relationships with the existing accommodation, catering and barge services, as well as the number of charter flight operators that fly into our airstrip when we want them to. So, in terms of everyone on the island, we're very keen to progress good working relationship, and that would include also the operators and owners of the historic seawall mining pit. Now, the thing that really separates Cockatoo from almost anywhere else in the world is grade. Cockatoo has the claim to fame of being the highest grade direct ship iron ore mine anywhere in the world. And that's important because when we come into a sort of macro thematic around ESG and sustainability, higher grade ores are more environmentally friendly than blast furnace because you produce less gangue material, you need less energy, and you produce less emissions from it. Now that's important because when you look at some of the constraints coming out of China around emissions, they still need the steel for their significant infrastructure build and stimulus they've got going on. They just don't want the emissions. Well, how do they do that? They do that by increasing the grade of the iron ore that's used in the blast furnaces, and also increasing the technology of their steel industry, which actually requires high grade ore. So we look at the thematic on high grade ore is something that will continue to be strong, and it provides a massive price premium. I just want to touch on that today because obviously there has been a little bit of concern obviously around the spot price of iron ore falling out of bed from over $230 a tonne on a 62 index basis down to about $90 today. But I would just note that even at $90 today on a 62, the Brazilian premium 65, which is the most comparable grade to what we would produce, although we expect to be even higher than that 65 premium today is still at $117.60 US, according to Metal Bulletin. Put in place with a 72-cent exchange rate, you still have an extremely attractive iron ore price in Aussie dollar terms. And the huge difference there between 62 and 65, and a 67 being higher than 65, should give investors some comfort that our ore will be in demand and it'll be profitable. We'll make money. So what's the next steps for Pearl Gull? We've got to complete some drilling. We'll be doing that obviously over the remaining of the dry season. We can do that probably till late October, and then we'll move into non-drilling related activities around resource estimation, met test work, mine planning, and other things. If we need to do some confirmatory drilling in the next drilling season, we'll do that. We've already lodged our initial mining proposal with DMERS. We've got a bit of work to do on that before we get it finalised, but we're looking forward to doing that, and that helps us get Switchpit into production as soon as possible. That is the nearest term cash flow for the company. We can then look at mine extension opportunities from once the Switchpit ore is depleted to move over to either North Bay or Magazine Pit, depending on drill results, and that may include some beneficiation work. What is really interesting on Cockatoo is there was historically a beneficiation plant there that produced some extremely high-grade con, and we can have a look at that. Or overlaid on top of that is obviously working with our partners on the island like ATS around other non-iron ore things such as Ballast and the oil and gas supply opportunities. So really exciting time for Pearl Gull, and I'll hand back to Alex.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jono. And I'll just add to that, to Jono's comments, just on the timing. So, we're drilling on the island until October. So we'll see, assays and news flow on that drilling extending into November and December as well. So, there's plenty of news flow to come.